Hi, everyone. Hi, Sarah. Welcome.
Hi there. Hi,
Okay,
Louise.
so today we've got Sara Gibbons with us. Sarah's my amazing friend who's also a co-author of our book coming up now, Trauma to Thrive. And Sarah's whole story for anybody who has not um, watched the summit episode, Trauma to Triumph, Sarah has told her story. We'll touch on a little bits of it, but it's also in the episode, in the chapter. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the fear of getting help. We'll start there. And we'll talk about how to overcome those things, and then how to really help and what helps. Right? How's that, Sarah?
That sounds good.
Okay. All right. So when we go back to your words, which I just want to pull up on the screen here again, because this is from your chapter. So let me just make sure I've got the right thing here. Right. Let me pull that up. Okay. So I love what you wrote here. I wait. Give me a sec. I poured my heart out to people who've been strangers until the day before. Then one by one, everyone else also shared their stories, their fears and issues, and why they were there. The feeling in the room was one of utter compassion. Suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. There was a bond with these people who had also honestly shared themselves. I wasn't the only person in the whole wide world struggling, and though I wouldn't wish pain on anyone, the relief that it wasn't just me was beyond words and huge. Um, yeah, I've gone through some similar. Wait, sorry, I just want to get myself the right level. Okay, I've gone through a similar thing where I have just not shared anything with anybody, and in the end, I shared with total strangers, and even with people that I knew. I just shared with people and got the most amazing um, support. And like you say, just finding out you're not the only one of a whole wide world. That's huge. That's a relief.
Well, there's so many factors that stop us from seeking help when actually, or sharing even with people. We don't have to seek professional help, but just sharing with people. It can be really hard when you've had a major trauma in your life, something that's upset the whole apple cart for you, and you're renegotiating life, because it's like having the rug pulled out from you. A big trauma, a big change, in my case, divorce, but people have that from health changes or loss in their life, all sorts of things. And as you say, in the book, small changes of trauma can build up. When you've had that, it's like having your soft underbelly exposed, and there's so much judgment in the world. Who can you trust to actually talk to? There's not that many people. You might feel that there's not that many people, and in some ways that's wise not to go telling everybody, because you can get a lot of confusing advice. People like to make things better. A lot of people want to make things better rather than just listen. So you're caught in these situations where you're really not quite sure which way to go for the best, mainly in a trauma situation, which is obviously what we're talking about here, mainly because, as I say, the rug's been pulled out from under your feet, you're lost yourself. So it's shown really a lack, it exposes a lack of trust in yourself, and it's really hard to make good decisions from that place. Which is why sometimes it can be helpful to seek professional support, which is actually what I had done before that situation that is described in the book. When my own situation happened, I did start going to a counsellor. I did speak to people professionally, but it wasn't until I was actually ready to face the consequences of speaking out. And that's a very personal, internal thing. You've got to be ready to go, actually, I've had enough of this. So it's not just about feeling guilty or ashamed or fear of judgment, but it's also about getting yourself to that point where you go, actually, I've had enough of this. There has to be a better way. The way I'm going is causing so much pain and suffering. And that is the situation I was describing there. And in some ways, it's easier to do it with strangers. And the background to that is actually I was 2 weeks on a Greek island, so that helped as well.
But Sarah, you bring something up which is really valid, because a lot of the trauma that we are suffering the trauma already, quietly. We don't say to people, I'm being abused. Very often we don't actually even know we are in an abusive relationship. We are very quiet about any kind of addiction. So we don't talk about the addiction. We try and hide it. And so when we do get to the end of a break where we don't already, where we just can't do it one more minute, we have not been talking about it. We've been suffering in silence. And I think so. It's important to learn not to wait until you get to the very end before you want to have help. You want to get help way earlier on, but we just don't know that we are supposed to get help. And which, like I said, sometimes we don't even know that we are abused. We just think, it's a bit hard. Or
I think what it is we don't realize, and we're not taught that how powerful we are as beings. I talk a bit in the chapter about conditioning. That's the way we've been brought up, but it also is our society's expectations, our friends, our teachers. All those things have an impact, as well as maybe our ancestral beliefs that have come through. So all of these things have an impact, as well as our experiences. And we're not really shown, and this is why these sort of things are so important, and it's coming more to the fore now, is that to realize that we actually can change how we see ourselves, how we think about ourselves, and what our lives can actually look like. We do have that power, but we've either didn't know or we've forgotten. And we need to be reminded how powerful we are to make those changes. But to go back to your point, some people suffer in silence. Some people actually don't know that it can be different. And until we recognize that actually where we are can't be right, that you have to have that motivation, because otherwise it's somebody else can tell you those things. We know them in our head. But until we're prepared to actually take the action to make things different, to take those baby steps, to move things along, then nothing's really going to change. I speak to people who have done a lot of work on various things, read lots and lots of books. But if you don't put it into practice, that's what really makes the change. Because if you put it into practice and you see that it works for yourself, nobody can ever take that away from you. But if it's head knowledge, it's like, well, maybe it's right, maybe it's not. So we have to really convince our mind, which is very involved in our conditioning. We really have to get to that point of convincing our mind that to look at things differently and for things to be different is actually possible. And then you start to open the door to those new changes.
But if you ask yourself one question, so it's just one question, that's really important. That question can be the determining factor between I keep on going the way I am going, or I wake up to the fact that there's an alternative reality out there, which I just don't know. I don't understand about the self-empowered alternative that is there for me. Nobody taught me that stuff. So how am I supposed to know? But it's like this. So if you ask yourself, who is taking care of me? Is there anybody taking care of me? That's such a basic question. Because the one that comes from it is, who am I taking care of if I'm not the one taking care of me?
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, it's quite a spiritual question, in the sense that do we believe that we're here just to make the most out of life, and when we die, we just return to the earth as ashes, and that's the end of us? Or are we aware that there are different levels of consciousness, if you like, different levels of frequency? And, atomic physics is definitely showing us, quantum physics is definitely showing us that there are different levels of consciousness. So to go back to your question, who am I? Can I look after myself? Well, yes, we're a community, but yes, we're responsible for ourselves for sure. But we are linked to other people, so it's not something we have to do on our own, but to be aware that
if we just ask of women specifically, how many women are aware that they're supposed to be in their own queue and not there at the back? How many women knows that? Because we brought up to nurture and to take care of others. And by no means this is only women. There are men who also does this, who also put their own feelings way to the back. And it has a lot, what you've said, it's the generational trauma, the generational outlooks, the generational stories, behaviors that we carry with us. And if you have been trained since small to be the carer of somebody else and not to expect that somebody's going to care for you, it's sort of normal, although it doesn't work for you. But
that's the thing, isn't it? If something's not working, then that's where we have to say, okay, it's not working. What am I going to look at differently? And you're absolutely right. I mean, it is such a tragedy, really, to bring anybody up into this life to think that they have to put other people first, because the irony is, if we put ourselves first, if we do see caring for ourselves on every single level as our life's purpose, if you like, then people are going to be compassionate. They're going to be respectful of other people. They're going to be able to help each other. It's not that you don't help other people, but we don't rescue them. We feel free to say to them, I really empathize that you have that problem, and I'm sure you're going to find a way out. I'm just paraphrasing, but you can be free to say that. You can support people, but you don't rescue them, because when we rescue other people, and we're brought up to rescue other people, what we're actually doing is disempowering them. We're saying to them, I know better than you. I can help you. You can't help yourselves. And that's the hidden message behind overly supporting other people or rescuing or saving somebody, is to tell them that, maybe not in those words, but you're telling them you can't do it by yourself. And that, how disempowering
there is a bit of a superiority in it, no matter how little we want to say it, but also there's a huge sort of self-esteem for the person who can help the other one. And sometimes it is somebody's only self-esteem. So you can't very well ask of somebody to stop helping others. But also, I do think we must be very clear that we are not asking anybody to stop helping other people. It doesn't mean loving yourself and supporting yourself and taking care of yourself doesn't mean neglecting others. Like, in what universe do we think suddenly, if I take care of myself, I've got nothing left for anybody else? That's not true.
Well, it's the opposite, isn't it? When you take care of yourself, you have so much more to give other people. But you also have that discernment as to know when it's appropriate or when it's a good idea to step in, and when it's a good idea to leave them. Because if we're so busy caring for other people and getting involved in their dramas and their problems, and we're not listening to what we need to listen, how can we make good decisions? It's just not possible, really.
True. So if we go back to not asking for help and let's use an example. Somebody is married to an abuser, and that person is hiding it from the world. I mean, it's the classical thing. You walk into the emergency room and you say, I walked into a door. You put the makeup on and you pretend it didn't happen, because you are the one walking around with a shame, and you are the one fearing that you're going to be judged. You're going to be judged because somebody's telling you that you started, and somebody's telling you that you are worthless, and somebody is putting all the blame on you, and you believing it, and therefore you don't make that switch. It's a little bit like the traumatized situation we have in the world now. You can, in the end, you're so traumatized you can't figure out what is what anymore. You can't get a clear take on what's really going on. Like, my sweetheart, if you're being abused, it's not your shame. It's that asshole. it's him. He's got so much hurt inside him, and I'm sorry for him. But you know what? You are not the one who's supposed to feel ashamed of it. You are not the one who has to fear judgment. Like, we are in that situation and we cannot see it. We're too deeply in it.
Well, one of the things I often work with people on is seeing everything as a mirror. In that, I first came across this really with Louise Hay, and she was saying, you know, if you don't like what somebody else is doing or saying, rather than judging it, have a look at it this way. Say, it's like they're either doing something that you wish you had the strength of mind to do. So, you know, if somebody's being bullied, it might be they wish they had that much confidence. Do you see what I mean? So it's not saying that the situation is good or bad, but there's elements in it. Or it might be something you wish you could do, or it might be something in yourself that you don't like. So that was my first introduction to seeing things as a mirror. And then over the years, I became aware that it's everything in our life is a mirror. So if we have a difficult situation, if we have a challenge, it's showing us something about ourselves. It might be showing us our lack of self-esteem, our lack of self-value, our lack of putting ourselves first. It might be showing us our wish to be rescued, our wish to be loved, because we might put up with that situation for just a small amount of love, or just that bit when they're so sorry and they're really lovely. So, you know, it's a complex situation, but we can't just blame another person. There's two aspects of it. And so when we wake up, if you like, and go, whoa, what's going on here? It's not going to be helpful to go, that person's done this, even if it's with compassion and saying, yes, it's part of their childhood and now upbringing and they're from abused family. Okay, you know, that may well be true, and we're not passing any judgment on that. The most important thing is to turn it around and say, what is this situation actually showing me? What is it showing me about myself? And that's where you get the answers. That's when you get the motivation to change. Because if you look at it and say, well, I'm looking at it for that little bit of love, it's like, well, actually, I could love myself more. I could take care of myself more. It might be being afraid to be alone or make decisions. So you put up with the abuse because somebody else is going to make the decisions. Somebody else is going to bring in the income. I don't know, whatever it might be. And so it's fear of going into the unknown and taking that responsibility for ourselves. And that's another element of what we were talking about earlier, which is about self-love, self-care. It's taking 100% responsibility for ourselves, even if we're in a relationship. You know, you want a relationship where you can do what you want, you can be who you want, you can explore whatever you want in life. That's not to say you do it without taking responsibilities for things that you have jointly in the family. I'm not talking about that, but it's that inner freedom that if you want to go traveling the world for 3 months and that's burning inside you, you're not going to be judged or abandoned by your partner for that, you know. Or it might be that you want to do different things and you move on. But I'm just saying it's part of a healthy relationship is going to be where you are free to be yourself. And the converse, you allow somebody else to be free to be who they want. And so you're together each day, not because of any societal rules or conditioning, but because you actually want to be with that person each day. And that's the same with friends. It's not quite so intense because you don't have the same intimate relationship expectations. So I think a lot of it is about taking responsibility and seeing where we're not.
Yes. So, but the problem, I mean, we have to go back to way before that. You know, we are not going to become present in our lives or self-empowered if we don't learn how to ask for help in the beginning. So we need to get over the conditioned ideas that we are not allowed to ask for help, or that nobody will ever help and support us, or we've got to get over the fear of a judgment. So that fear of judgment, you know, I think we must help people to actually stop caring about people judging us, and that become very disinterested in other people's opinions of our story.
Yeah. The more you get grounded in your own self-worth and self-belief, the less those situations are going to affect you, for sure. But it's getting started, isn't it? That's the tricky part. And they say it takes a whole village to bring up a child, and I would expand that and say it takes a whole village to help you develop and grow as a person. And we are all linked energetically in consciousness. We're all linked together, so we're not alone. And that is probably one of the big problems that we have, is that this idea that we're separate. You see it in nations and flags, and you see it in sport and things. You can have fun and sport, but when it gets to the point of being separate and very competitive, that's a whole new ball game, isn't it? Unintended pun there, but so we're not alone, but it can feel like it because physically we're separate, but on another level we're absolutely totally connected.
Okay, so let's talk about shame, because shame is in the end, I think, going to be one of the biggest reasons why we're not going to ask for help. So if we look at shame, just such a universal thing. So many people walk around with shame. Shame that's not their own. Shame of themselves, feeling they should be better. I have a deep feeling inside that I just don't match up, and I don't want to really let anybody see my insides. So people are walking around with shame. It's like a human condition. It's a really big problem out there.
It is. It is. Yeah. And we feel guilty. That's a big part of it as well. We feel, but the only way to start to move out of that is to take care of the self, which is why I always suggest that's always the first place to start, is taking care of the self, because every step that you do, and it can be small things. It might be drinking more water, taking a few supplements, changing your diet a bit. The only way that we're going to change that is to recognize that it's unhealthy, to see that there is something different.
But Sarah, look at what happened with you when you are in that group with strangers, and you at the point you've had enough. Okay, it helps if you're somewhere on a Greek island and you don't know anybody, but it could have been anywhere. Bearing in mind that I've been doing group work now for 14 years, and I see these things happen, whether it is in a Al-Anon room or in the middle of a city, or whether it is at a retreat, or it doesn't really matter. You can put strangers together, but you can also put people together that knows themselves, or that knows each other. And that moment when you get over yourself and you get to that point of enough, I actually can't do this anymore. You've got to get to that point. I cannot do what I've been doing anymore. I have to do something else. It's like you get to a point where it's like, this has to come out of me. I can't do this anymore. You're lucky enough to be in one of these supportive groups. It becomes part of your greatest healing. And that's why I love group work so much.
Yeah, it can certainly help to get that feedback from other people that, first of all, that you're not alone, that other people feel the same way, and acceptance for other people, because you show them your dark side, if you like, or your shame or your guilt or whatever it might be, and they go, still love you. And that is huge, isn't it? But it's, you have to keep going with it. You can't stop. You
still accept it. They still accept you. They don't reject you.
Yeah, it's taking that judgment out, isn't it? It's helping people, because the reason we find shame is like a self-judgment, isn't it? We're telling ourselves we're bad, we're guilty, we're ignorant, we're no good, all that rubbish, and that has to stop. That self-talk has to stop. We have to change the way we're thinking. And as I said before, one of the part of it is about convincing the mind that is something that is true. And that's where groups can be so helpful, is because it's other people are helping you to see who you really are. However, we can't rely on that. We have to know that for ourselves. So it can be part of the process, and it's really helpful. But we've also got to know it deep inside for ourselves, before that's going to be absolutely solid within us. Otherwise, we're going to just create another dependent situation where it's like, oh, I've got to go there for them to tell me I'm all right, but I don't really believe it. We've got to get to that point where it's actually, you actually believe it. And that's where our own personal inner work is so important.
Yeah, if you're in a good group, people are going to kick your butt and tell you when you're.
Well, that's true.
And they will do it with much love and with much compassion. You'll even enjoy being a victim. So
but it's knowing that when that is going on, that despite all of that, you're still accepted and loved, and that's the difference, isn't it?
A real group, a really good group is never always do tell the truth, but it's never comes from any other place than a place of I've been there and a place of compassion. You know, there's another thing which I think about. Yes, it helps if you go to anybody. You can really go to anybody with your story. It's not always going to help a lot, but at least, just get that weight off you so you don't walk around with monkey mind and thinking about the same stuff over and over and over in your head, because that's where talk therapy helps, is because it gives you a place where your mind can sort out something that is just going around and around. But whenever you are in a group like the one that you had, when you start telling your story in a safe place, you become free of it. It becomes just your story. So it's not only about getting the help, it's also getting the emotional freedom from that shame and that story and that secrets and that burden and that you've been walking around for such a long time. It's telling a story in safe places.
Yeah, well, when you've got that story, that monkey mind, as you call it, going on, it's going round and round in your head. And it's not going to be neutral, is it? It's going to be either taking you up, which we know it isn't doing, or it's going to be taking you further down. And what happens when you're able to speak it out in a group without judgment is you'll be able to, or even, I've heard people speak it out by themselves or write it out or whatever you want to do to get it out and get rid of it. It's like it's changing that tape loop. So things aren't going round and round. And the other thing that happens when you speak things out is it's rather than in your mind, you can look at it somehow more objectively and you can say, well, I've just said that, but is that actually true? Is that really what I think? Or is that really what I want to be thinking? So it sort of helps to shift that stuck energy that's going round and round and get it out, and you can start to move again. So it's about taking the action, isn't it? That's what we're talking about. But knowing that there is support for you. There are people that are going to listen to you without judgment, that there are tools and things that you can use to move that energy, to move that stuckness, to move that repetitive pattern that really isn't serving. And as you say, at that point, then you get like a little glimpse of freedom. You get a little glimpse of light at the end of the tunnel and your mind goes, well, maybe there is some truth in that. And the door opens a little bit more.
That's why I love the fact that we're all telling our stories in the book and in the summit. So we tell our stories. We've all come from really traumatized situations. We didn't know what to do. We were. Some of us were broken. Some of us were desperate. Some of us have had nothing left, and very confused and really didn't know where to start. And all of us have managed to work through all of us to a place where we've managed to get inner peace. And it's possible for everyone. So the power of your story is maybe just the one that if you start telling it, it may just be the story that somebody else actually need in order to understand that this is possible. I don't have to be stuck there. I don't have to remain quiet. I don't have to do the things I've always done. I can actually hope that something is very different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is where, if you go to your friends and your family, unfortunately, most of them are codependent, like you, so they are going to go like, no, shame. No, they shouldn't. Oh, how could they? Oh, no, it's awful for you. That's codependency. Because
it also feeds into the drama. And I think that's one of the reasons I kept really quiet as well.
Yeah.
Was because I didn't want to feed into the drama. It's like, I need a solution to this. I don't know what it is, but and I've had people come to me as well. I can remember somebody in particular who came to me after she had done exactly that. You know, she'd asked all her friends about how to deal with it. She'd spoken to her family and was utterly confused as to a way forward. And was desperate.
Because it disempowers you. It disempowers you and it puts you into a victim place, because all they do is
can
they blame the other person.
That's right. And people can only help you from as far as they've been able to help themselves.
Yes, so most people
can't. You can find somebody that's been through something that is similar to you, or that you resonate with, as to being able to help you. Then you're going to be able to move forward. Otherwise, you're going, especially if it's family and things like that, that's where you've got your conditioning from.
Yes.
And that's what set it up in the first place. It's like, well, I love them, but really, yes. we're just going to go around in circles.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got to know that people who are playing to our victimhood and helping us blame other people are not helping us to become self-empowered. People who are not codependent go like, and I'm really sorry to hear that. What are you doing about that? Now that is brilliant. Hang on to that person, because that person is going to help you to start noticing things that you can do. And that's self-empowerment. I think, let's talk about self-empowerment, because I think it's important that people know what is self-empowerment.
Well, self-empowerment is being able to move yourself. Let's go back a stage. When there's a challenge, you don't see it as a trauma. Well, not necessarily a trauma. It could be traumatic, but you don't see it maybe as negative, put it that way. So there might be, it could be, just problem with ordering something or whatever, right through to big stuff. But whenever there's a problem, whenever you see something as a challenge, whenever somebody's being difficult, in the self-empowerment is the ability to say, what is that showing me? What is that saying about myself? It's not about blaming other people or judging them. It's not about judging yourself. It's like, what can I learn from this? And when you do that, you move from that low point of the challenge, and you can start move yourself back up to where you can again keep on creating what you want in your life. So self-empowerment to me means actually it's not avoiding challenges, and challenges are going to happen. Life happens. It's like, how do you deal with that? When you're self-empowered, you have the tools to bring yourself back up from that difficult place, learn a bit more about yourself, which is always a good thing. That's where your freedom is, and move on, but without judging other people or yourself.
And you're alluding to another very important tool here, which is the power to reframe stuff. So to take it from, this is hard, I don't know how to do this, and to go like, how can I do this? Is this hard? Is there another way? What am I missing? What is the blessing in this? Now, there's so many ways in which to reframe things, but we are usually just stuck in the heart instead of finding the way.
Stuck in the heart. Yeah.
Not the heart, the hard.
Oh, the hard. Okay. Yeah,
that makes sense. The hard.
The hard stuff. Absolutely. And, sometimes one of the tools I talk about in the chapter as well is to see two paths. And this is really what started for me when I was on that Greek island, and seeing what that showed me, being with those people who immediately became so close, and we had such fun together, and it was just a whole new world. And what that showed me is, and sometimes we need to know that there are other possibilities, because the other thing that conditioning does for us is it keeps us in a small box. It keeps us limited. It keeps us thinking that we've got to do it this way, because otherwise we're not going to be safe. And going to that Greek island and sharing with these other people and getting all this rubbish out and having fun at the same time, what that did was show me that there is actually another way to live. There is another choice. I have possibilities, and I didn't know that I had possibilities. And what I did was I looked to, well, do I want to go back to that small life where I thought I could only be happy in this particular situation? Or do I want some more of this, which is actually, I have no idea where it's going to take me. It's totally unknown. It's completely new, but actually it looks like quite good fun. And you have to, you're like at a fork in the road. Do I keep going down the way I'm going? And sometimes, I ask people, just imagine yourself down that path. What are you going to be like? What's it going to feel like in a year's time, in 5 years' time, whatever, and that maybe pass them a bucket. And then it's like, well, what if you go into the unknown? What if you do this? How does that feel? And yeah, it's scary. Yes. That's where you want your community support.
I'm definitely talking to the right person. Somebody who went to an actual Greek island to go and find herself, to go and find something.
Well, it just started the process, to be honest.
Yeah.
It just kick-started me into seeing that there was possibilities.
Yes.
And the action, of course, had to be taken when I saw that little advert, because I'd never been abroad before, and I was living in a very, I was terrified going. I won't go into details now, but there was a few things that happened on the way traveling there that made me think, what am I doing here? Who are these people? Because they were so different. I'm not saying it was easy to get to a Greek island. It wasn't. But oh my goodness me, having done it and having been there and met these people, it did open up everything. And as you say, it doesn't have to be a Greek island. It's just knowing that there are possibilities.
Okay, so not quite Shirley Valentine, but what it did was...
No, my kids call me Shirley Valentine.
It opened your eyes. It opened your eyes to things are different, and for other people, things are different in different parts of the world. There are different solutions. There are different ways of doing things. And so it basically means that if we take ourselves out of a situation for long enough, and sometimes it's a week, and sometimes it's a few weeks, and sometimes it is just making sure that you are regularly with other people who are healthy, so that you can come back into whatever in your life is not serving you with fresh eyes. Because that's a bit of a aha wake-up moment when you realize, I didn't even see this. And there is something different out there.
Absolutely. I mean, you're quite right. It's very hard. And even now, when you're in a challenge, you can be so enwrapped in that challenge that it's hard to get that bigger perspective and go, even with all the tools and the work and whatever, it's like, it can be really hard to step back and say, what's really going on here? What is this showing me? You sort of forget when you're in the middle of it. And that's, again, where it can be helpful just to reach out to somebody that you know and trust and go, this is happening. And they'll go, oh, well, what about this? And you go, I knew that. Why did I forget? But, when you're in the middle of it, it's really hard. So somebody that you trust, somebody that you know, somebody that's not going to be judgmental, somebody that knows you and knows, what you've already worked on and how you can look at things can be, and then it can change like on a sixpence, really, very, very quickly.
Because what I love is that we've got some people watching, and already that when you start putting your attention where you want to go, this is the kind of content that you start consuming because you understand there's something more out there. That's like a big step, isn't that? Just to start watching. And by the way, everybody's watching. Please go and give us a few hearts. Guys, everybody. How I like those hearts. It's really important. And I would like to know if anybody in our audience have found it really hard to start and to find and look for help, to admit that they need help. Okay, I'm waiting for those hearts. There's not enough there. There are too little of them. Okay, so I'm coming back to check on that. Let's say hi to everybody quickly, Sarah. And then
actually, I was on the wrong thing, so I can see now there's some comments. So that's lovely.
Yeah. Okay, but you must switch it off because it causes a comment.
Oh, all right.
An echo. I thought I heard an echo, so it's going to be hard for our audience to listen to us. So you just switch it off. I'll show you here the comments. Here we are. There we go.
Right. Okay.
Hello. Wait, I can't see. My glasses are dirty.
Oh, that's Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
I just messed them up. Hi, Catherine. I have not seen you here before, so welcome. And hello. Nice to see you here. There's Mitch. Hi, Mitch. Very welcome. Okay, let's see what Catherine says. When I first told the group about my post-trauma, such an immense relief. Yeah, it's a relief, hey? Yeah, I love groups. Absolutely love groups, love group work. I can take people quite far, but something magical happens in a group. Right. Oh, John Wayne.
Absolutely. It's what we call the British stiff upper lip.
No, Mitch, we are setting you guys free. You don't have to. You don't have to do this anymore. Brave
Put
men
up
can
and shut
fly.
up, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well done on changing that, Catherine. So well done. Hey, you're very proud of yourself. Okay. So also, if anybody's watching and you want to know from either of us, a specific thing that you want to get over, so that you can ask for help, or if you want to connect with us afterwards and private messaging, you're very welcome, or leave a comment. We'll go back and we'll check again tomorrow. Okay, so Sarah, what are you doing now? What are you helping people with?
I do a number of things. I work with people privately on a 12-week intensive program to help them move through the effects of divorce and help them to look at what their own part in it is, so that they can then get to that point of freedom. So that's called the Phoenix program. I work with people on another program called Mastering Me, because again, as we've talked, when you're self-empowered, when you are able to organize your own life and to flow in your own life, then you can face those challenges so much more easily. Obviously, there's the book.
Oh, sorry, what happened to me?
Just as I said, the book, up it comes.
That was really an accident, well-timed accident.
I'm also developing some online courses, and very shortly I will have a membership academy on divorce recovery, so that I'll put loads and loads of information, but other books I'm working on stress and aging and health, as well as personal development and personal and spiritual development as well. So that will be coming very soon as well, and that'll be a monthly program with the opportunity for a Zoom with me. So I'm hoping to get that up in the next sort of 2 or 3 months. So yeah, lots of things going on.
Now, I'm very happy that you are supporting people who've been through a divorce, because it's one of the hardest things in the world for people to go through. Maybe we can just talk a little bit about the loss of safety in the world when you are suddenly finding yourself in that place, and how to rebuild your worldview. I think for me, those two are two really important things that happen to everybody, that they lose their sense of safety. Do you also find that?
Right. Yeah. Well, I'd go back to what I said before about what a healthy relationship actually is. And that's one where both parties are taking responsibility for self. They're together because they want to be each and every day. They're not afraid to go out and do different things. So if you take that as a healthy relationship, one where there's that freedom, but also that mutual respect as well, and acceptance. What a divorce does is it shows us how far from that we are, for all sorts of reasons, which can easily be summarized as the happily ever after syndrome, the princess and the princess, prince and princess, and even the knight on the white charger coming to rescue. All those things come into place. So the thing, when I would say for anyone going through a relationship breakup or a divorce, is it's showing you how far you are from that idea of being responsible for yourself. And that's why so often divorce is such a trauma, is because I have a lot of people that come and say, I thought I was fine. I thought I was going along. And then a divorce comes along. And what it does is it shows you your soft underbelly. It shows you how far you are from actually being self-empowered and responsible for yourself. And so it's taking those steps to get to that point that can feel really hard, because they're taking you into the unknown. But of course, that's where we want to be as people. We want to be self-empowered. We want to create the life we want. We don't want to be in a small box. So those steps into the unknown have to be taken. And that's why, of course, it can be really helpful to have some good support while you're doing in that process. But yeah, it's getting to the point of total self-responsibility. That's the nub of it, really.
Yeah. So I think what a lot of people don't see coming is they focus on the loss of a person.
Yeah.
But what they don't understand is that there's grieving that's bigger than that, because you're going to be grieving about your loss of how you saw your world. This was my life.
Exactly. Yeah. You
I
lose
believed in my life.
it's the loss of your expectations. And sometimes people also feel it negates what they've had before. And I would encourage people not to do that, because there's all, there will have been good times.
No, it was a lie. It was all a lie. Yeah.
There will have been some good times, and you don't want to negate that. And you're not saying that you've made a mistake particularly necessarily. Not a failure. I mean, failure is really going back to that issue of challenges. It's not a failure. It's like, what is it showing you? So it's about moving forward to that self-responsibility, but you certainly don't feel bad about where you've come from. It's all part of our learning and growth, and everybody does it in different ways.
Okay, so so we'll check just now if we've got any questions there. I want to just bring up the book that I accidentally brought up just now.
Okay.
Very sensitive keypad there. Okay, so that's our book, and I've just checked today, and it's still #1 new release. It's so great to see that banner there. Yeah. So I think it's about 3 weeks now, and then it will come out. So we're getting quite excited about it. It's coming near, and we've been waiting for it for a long time. I'm truly proud of it, because everybody have just brought extra. Everybody have just brought some, real vulnerability and amazing tools and good questions we can ask ourselves. It's like a wonderful chapter after a wonderful chapter after another one. So there's no fluff in it. It's an amazing book, and I'm very proud of it. So if anybody's interested, so the link is it's inside the Facebook description. So let me just take that away. Okay, so let's go and see. All right, let's see if anybody's got questions. Oh, this is so true, Catherine. Relationships should be a major. It's completely.
Absolutely.
We should go in classes, how to parent and how to relationship. How to relate, how to be in the relationships. What is codependence? What is a healthy relationship? Yeah, it's so important. No sense of self. Okay. So look, I think the important thing to know is this: when there's self-compassion, there's no shame. So I think we start with self-compassion. We start talking to ourselves like we are, our best friend. We befriend ourselves, and we start giving ourselves compassion. When we give ourselves compassion, shame goes. So we all have to start somewhere. Look, be very proud of yourself. You are here. You're showing up. You are connecting. You are doing the work. You are immersing yourself. And I think that's such a good thing to do. Such a great thing. Just keep on doing it. Baby steps, one at a time. And when you look back 6 months ago, suddenly you find out, what, something has shifted in me. You just have to start somewhere and deeply commit to it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a good question, isn't it? That's a good point, Catherine. In some ways, just as it takes two to make a good relationship, it also takes two to end it in a loving way and a caring way, because you can't be responsible for somebody else's response. You have to be honest, you have to be truthful, but and you can support up to a point, but you can't take responsibility for somebody else's response. And I suppose it's about recognizing that if you've done that, that is the most loving thing you can do, because if that's not accepted by another person, then that's their issue to look at. And sometimes we just have to leave people with their issues to look at. And
I can definitely say that my biggest trauma has been my biggest blessing, without going to a Greek island.
Yeah. And I can't say that looking back, if I knew what I know now, I would have done things differently. Of course I would have done things differently, but then I wouldn't know what I wouldn't have gone through that journey, because I didn't know, because of where I was, which was basically in a place of pure ignorance about what the world was about.
Yeah, look, Catherine, I
wasn't taught in schools, or my parents didn't know. So
we don't know. We just don't know. There's no way. You cannot end a relationship lovingly if you haven't yet learned how to love yourself and how to be, like you say, an empowered human being in the world. You can't end it lovingly. If you do, you're being let's just walk over this person if you don't come from a place of self-empowerment. So until you've learned how to love yourself and heal yourself, that's a thing that comes way later. Just be kind to yourself if you didn't end it lovingly. We learn these skills through the traumas in the end.
Well, the other thing is maybe to have a little look about what actually love is. And we tend to think that love is hearts and flowers, basically. And to end a relationship lovingly may well be without judgment, but to be truthful, straightforward. Sometimes the most loving things that have happened to us have been painful, because they're showing us, going back to that mirror again, they're showing us where there is not love in ourselves.
Yeah, that's a huge blessing for us when we find that out. Okay, so I want to thank everyone for coming, and I want to thank you especially, Sarah. I always love talking to you, so I really want to thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom and being part of this book. It's very special to have you part of this book, and we'll do this again, right? We'll find another great subject. We'll come and we'll talk about it.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and it's a real honour to be part of the book. And I'm really looking forward to reading all the other chapters as well. I can't wait. Yeah. I think it's going to be amazing. So you're doing absolutely great job in getting the book out there, getting these ideas out there. So thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
I know good people. I know people with good stories. Yes. Thank you everyone for coming. Please share. Tag somebody if you know that they need to hear this. If anybody's going through a really hard time, so many people getting divorced, and so many people separating, and so many people are lonely, and so many people are not asking for help. So guys, please, if you know somebody, please share it. And wait. Yeah. What's perfect anyways? We're not going for perfect. Let me just put it out there. We're not going for
it's life.
Fast fingers. I'm trying to be on the right things. Concentrating on 3 things. No. And I didn't drink my water. Wait a minute. Maybe my brain is not functioning. Okay. So all right. So there's going to be people coming back and watching it after live. Thank you all for watching, and keep on putting those hearts out there. We love them, and sharing. And Sarah, thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. Lots of love to you, and lots of love to our audience. And see you next week again.
Bye. Bye for now.